What's up, guys? Welcome back to another great episode of Beerfield Fantasy Shots. It's Thursday, October 5th. Here to bring you some news, here to bring you a fun little segment I like to call Save My Team. I'm going to combine these two today because there just isn't a lot of news outside of a couple of things that happened before the Thursday night's game. So we're going to jump in the news real quick. Per Adam Scheffner, Gronk will be back next week. As a lot of you know, that Gronk was a late scratch to tonight's game, which left a lot of us scrambling. Myself don't have Gronk, but I'm in a tight end weird spot at one of my leagues, and I quickly picked up Dwayne Allen, which looks to be the bad call. What kind of happens? But it looks like Gronk will be back next week. So going on to more injury news. Doug Baldwin was a full participant in practice today, while CJ Prosise missed on practice. Doug Baldwin, it's great to see him practicing in full. I expect him to be out there on Sunday. Prosise missed on the practice. It's not looking good for him to go unless he practices tomorrow, and probably has to look more of an in full practice for him to even be considered suiting up on Sunday. But on Saturday, keep watch for Nick when he drops in and out episodes. Michael Crabtree was a full participant today. It was uncertain whether or not he would go. He was leaning towards playing, and today suggests he should be all good and ready to go, which is a good thing for the Raiders as they don't have Carr for at least this week, and they're going to need all the help they can get against a good Ravens secondary. Speaking of more Raiders news, Donald Penn came out and said that Derek Carr told him that he's very ahead of schedule and could return next week. That's great. It's great to hear that he wants to play next week, and that's great that he's that far along after suffering a fracture in his back. If I'm the Raiders, and if you don't feel 100% confident that he's 100% healthy, I wouldn't play him. He's your future. He's extremely important to your team, not just for this season, but for many seasons going forward. Yes, you do play in probably, if not arguably, the toughest division of football, but you don't want to rush him back, get him hurt, basically do what Mike Shanahan did to Robert Griffin during their playoff run during his rookie season. It's not a good idea, but we'll see more so for next week. He's definitely not going to play this week, though. JJ did not practice today for the Dolphins. This is what he does. It doesn't look great that he's not practicing. The whole offense as a whole has looked really bad. He's been taken out of the game because of this knee problem. Though he's looked effective when he has played and with no knee injury, it's just that this entire offense has looked bad. And with him not practicing, it just doesn't bode well for him playing this weekend. Just stay tuned tomorrow, see what changes if he does play, or if he does have a full practice in tomorrow. Otherwise, again, just keep in check with Nick on Saturday to see what he thinks and what's been announced. Marcus Mariota was able to throw today in practice, but he did not run. It does not look good for him to go. I would expect Matt Castle to play, which is why they brought in Brendan Whedon to back him up. Unless something huge changes tomorrow, I don't expect Mariota to play. But then again, like a lot of these Thursday news and Friday news, just going to have to wait and see what the practice reports are for the next day. Devontae Adams and Ty Montgomery were both limited practices. They were both limited practice today in practice. Oh, sorry. And they're both truly 50-50 to play on Sunday. I don't see them wanting to rush either guy back. If I had to guess who gets the more likely chance to play, I'm going with Adams, as they can just phase him out if needed. I can see Montgomery giving them both these guys rest to make sure that they're both healthy. The problem is they're playing against Dallas, which is one of the more likely teams to make the playoffs in the NFC, and the Packers don't want to lose out on a tiebreaker because they lost this game to Dallas. Right now, you're going to have to wait and see. It's really tough to gauge whether or not both of these guys go. They're both in the right direction, which is great after Adams' hit last Thursday night and after Montgomery went out with those broken ribs. It's it's good to see that there is a chance that they can actually play. I don't think they're. I personally don't think they're going to. I'm not a coach. I'm not an expert or anything like that. I don't see the point of risking two very important pieces to your offense in a Week 5 game. That's all. But again, stay tuned with Nick Saban on Saturday to see what his thoughts are and what we've heard over the last couple of days prior to that. And then the last one, which is kind of big news, is more, I guess, for Dynasty purposes, but Tyler Boyd is facing drug and traffic charges for Bo Berman via Twitter. So Boyd was picked up on July 12th after following an accident, and it was really not talked about. It wasn't really mentioned, and now it kind of explains what happened maybe with him and why he's been phased out of this offense, so quickly to the point where he's been healthy scratches some weeks. If any of this comes to fruition, Tyler Boyd's already on the fringe of being dropped in dynasty leagues, and if this does happen, he's definitely droppable. I think he's already droppable. I'm about ready to drop him in out of the dynasty league. It's sad because I was a big fan of what he did in Pittsburgh, and I thought he landed in a great spot with Cincinnati, playing alongside AJ Green. Dalton's not an elite quarterback, but he's good enough to get him the football. And this Bengals offense has been starving for a number 2 receiver, which is why and what prompted probably John, getting John Ross back quickly, and they have, I believe, Josh Reynolds as well. Josh Reynolds, sorry. And so that's all I got for news. I'm going to jump into my other segment real quick. This is talking to teams, to owners out there who have 2-2 teams, 1-3 teams, and 0-4 teams. This segment is to kind of help you guys not lose faith, kind of give you guys some tips and hints to get through these, to come back from this rough stretch as we enter bye weeks. Now, for those of you out there that are that have been playing fantasy football for a long time, have probably been in this position before and kind of know what to do. But for the newer players, or for the more casual players who may be feeling pissed off or despaired or whatever because their team sucks, it's just know that there's a guy in my league a few years ago, before I changed my league into a dynasty league. He started out 0-5, and he ended up winning out the rest of the week, or winning out the rest of the season, and then actually won the championship because of good waiver wire picks up. So that kind of leads into the number one way to fix your team, and that's playing the waiver wire properly. There's a lot of leagues out there that don't run fab, that run just a waiver wire order, whether it resets every week based on standings, or if it's a running line, or it's a non-reset one that runs throughout the season. And then so you have teams that kind of hold the number one waiver wire, and they wait for that big pickup. Either way, you can find your dimes on there. Chris Carson was a waiver wire darling. Maybe even JG, or then you got guys like Wayne Gallman who could be now, and you got guys like Corey Clement who could be, and then continue to stream your quarterbacks and tight ends, and your new defenses. If your league has kickers, don't be afraid to start moving along kickers that that have a good possibility of putting up a lot of points because their offense is playing against a bad defense, or it just looks like it's going to be a high-scoring game. You can't just save your team through waivers. I mean, you could, but there's more chances to help move along your team, and this is by taking some risk and changing up your roster. But go out there, look for some guys that are maybe buy low candidates, guys like Jay Ajayi or Amari Cooper, or maybe even Matt Ryan if you still think he could bounce back. Maybe Derek Carr. He's going to probably and more likely be dropped in a lot of your leagues. Go on and pick him up. I mean, he was fantastic last year. He's been struggling this with the entire Raiders offense has looked a little bit off, and I expect them to at least fix and right the ship at some point this season. Then you have more guys like Isaiah Crowell. Maybe the guy with Chris Thompson wants to. You want to turn that, Nick? Sorry, I didn't realize I was recording. Anyways, maybe a guy like Chris Thompson, who had his bad week last week, got a bye week this week. Maybe you want to go out there and buy him. There are many ways to shake up your roster. If you don't like it, make some moves. If you have a lot of these players, don't be afraid to trade them off. Try to find that piece. Start playing the bye weeks. Start trying to find ways to get yourself into the correct position to take this. I know this isn't, groundbreaking news or anything. I know a lot of you guys out there might be like, Dan, I already know all this shit. So what's the point of you telling me? It's not just for that. It's just a reminder for you guys out there that may be struggling, you know, with wanting to stay up with this. And please, 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 if you're one of these teams, don't just give up on it and just let your team go. If at anything, at least change out your bye week players. If guys get hurt, drop them. Um, don't let the league be compromised because you're pissed off. That's really what that just comes down to. And actually, in lost seasons, it's actually kind of fun to be that asshole that wants to beat out every team and ruin other people's playoff chances. It's a real pessimistic and facetious way to kind of piss people off, which is something that I like to do if I'm in a league where I just had a lot of injuries or I just had a lot of bad breaks at the beginning of the season and my season just seems kind of lost. Also, to go along with this is that make sure that you know your league settings. Some leagues out there have 50, 60, 70% of teams will make the playoffs. That means you don't need to be the best team. You just need to get yourself into the position to give yourself a chance in the playoffs. Now, there are, some leagues out there that are more heavily in favor of just allowing the best teams in. Maybe, it's a 12 team and only 4 teams make the playoffs. Or if it's like my 16 team league, only 4 teams make the playoffs, which only gives 25% of teams in to make it. Yes, and that becomes difficult, but then it comes down to what I just said before is that you get to play spoiler, and that's just as fun to do. Um, that's just some tips and hints for you guys to kind of move along. Don't despair. We're only 4 weeks in. Week 5 is off. The game right now is not as sexy as we thought it was. Doug Martin has looked fantastic in his return and has been beaten up against a pretty beatable New England run game or run defense. Winston has looked off though. Brady hasn't looked great either. Both offensive lines are being beat. Instead of Winston is just missing some throws. I do expect this game to kind of pick up though as we keep playing through the third and into the fourth quarter, which you guys can see in the background right now. Again, I'm Dan Theory at TheoryBFF. That's where you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow Nick behind me at Nick Sparts with the Z, not an S. You can follow our other co-hosts, Chris Hopper at Hot BFF. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Please leave comments. Let us know how we're doing. Ask us questions, whether you're tagging us on Twitter. Keep doing that. We'd love to keep answering those. Tomorrow, you're going to have Chris back on for news and for daily plays. I don't know how he did last week, but I know he's been kind of struggling as the season's been a little bit weird in weeks 3 and 4. And as I've been mentioning before, Nick will be back on Saturday to fill out the rest of the news if there's any, and then the injury report as we keep, trucking along with some of these guys who have been limited, guys like Adams and Montgomery and Mariota and things like that. Again, please keep liking, reviewing, subscribing to our podcasts. We're going to keep, dishing these out until week 17. So again, thanks guys. I will catch you guys on Tuesday. Thanks. Bye.